Okay, today's date is March 3rd, 2022, and today's guest is Sensei Rick Leveille. Okay, please state your name and rank.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rick Leveille. I am ranked Kudan in the Shintani Federation.
How many years have you been involved with martial arts?
It's 49 years this year.
What is your martial arts background?
I started my training, my official training in Wawa in 1973. So that was with Sensei Don Gerard, who was a student of Sensei Shintani. And initially we had there was a demonstration in the high school in Wawa in, I think it was Thanksgiving weekend in that year, 1973. And so they took enrollment and 150 people signed up and stayed. So it was ridiculous, really. You know, I mean, for one man to teach this group. But anyway, that was the start of, so my background started there, but initially I first started, my first class in karate was actually in Vancouver in March break in 1971. I went with a friend out to Vancouver for March break, and we stayed with his cousin there, who was a law student at Fraser. And so he asked us if we wanted to go to his karate class because he was going there that night. I said, sure, you know, so my buddy and I went. And I believe it was Shitoru, as far as I recall. And a small dojo, there was maybe 10 people all told there. And when I walked in, it was absolutely quiet. And of course, I was a teenager, you know, I was, you know, kind of a little bit of a rascal. And I'm walking in there and I'm making all kinds of comments until somebody spoke up and said, shh, no talking. And I'm looking around and like, well, okay, no problem. Nobody was talking. They were all warming up on their own. And in walks this guy with his big German Shepherd and walks in the back, comes out, back out. Dog lays down on the outside, just outside of the training area and stayed there. He walks in and he's got his gi on. And we started classes and it was like, I thought it was going to get torn apart. Some of the exercises they were doing was just painful, you know, but that was my introduction to karate. And I never forgot it. I still remember that day. So when I went to that demonstration in 1973, I saw the same thing again. I saw something similar. And, you know, it hooked, I was hooked right there. So I volunteered and I volunteered with Don Gerard, Sensei Don, to help him set it up. And so I arranged to have the high school gym, advertising, took enrollment, took care of everything for him. And that was my start in karate. Now, so background wise, I've been training under Shintani my whole life for 49 years. So I've always looked at other things. I've always explored many things over the years, but this had my full attention. And I never really found the need or the desire to really go anywhere else. So I was trained in some judo. We did training in judo with Don Gerard for the first 4 years, part of our training. We wrestled. I had a little bit of training in boxing when I was younger, before karate, but it never really grabbed me. I just, it didn't seem to really be what I was looking for. So the karate thing was, you know, that's my background. It's all I know, really.
Well, you've answered the next two questions. So the next question after that would be, what are your personal accomplishments related to martial arts?
Well, I'm sure some of you know that, you know, I have been a Senate member. I'm retired from the Senate, but I was part of the original Senate that Sensei picked out. It was a great honor, something that I've always been very proud of. And so I helped with organize all that in meetings before the Senate was actually formed and the Constitution and everything was signed. So that to me is one of the greatest accomplishments of my life. You know, I could never have imagined, and I would have done anything like that when I was young. And of course, earning my black belt and receiving it from Sensei Shintani, my Shodan, I still think that was probably my one thing that I'm most proud of, because it was not easy. It was really a big challenge, and especially living in the North, we had to travel so much that nothing came easy. So when I reached that milestone, it changed my life, and so did Sensei Shintani. But you know, having said that, Mr. Gerard, he's left the karate organization in '79, and I've only talked to him a couple of times since, but he taught us a lot, and you know, I really respect everything that he taught us. It was, you know, it was a different way of training, and we learned a lot of things so different than today. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's awesome. The chair is yours, so you can say whatever you want, whenever you want.
Well,
what was your first encounter with Hashi Shintani?
Well, we trained in Wawa from the beginning of November, I'd say, or late October of '73. And I'll get to this, but Mr. Gerard had his car. He got in a car accident after about a couple of months of traveling to Wawa every Sunday to teach us. And so after a couple of months, you know, winter was setting in, and he got in a car accident on the Foliette Highway. So if you have never been there, it is the windiest, roughest road that you could ever imagine in the bush, without one building within 100 miles. 100 miles. So pretty tough going. And so he called me up on a Sunday, you know, in the afternoon before class, because I always opened for him and set everything up for him. And he said, "Rick, I can't come." I said, "I won't be able to come. I wrecked my vehicle and I can't replace it." You know? So, you know, bad news, because the group was really keen. We had an amazing group of people in Wawa that were really hungry for this. Anyway, so I said, "Okay, I'll go let everybody know." And so I went to the workout, and so everybody was gathered, and so I called everybody's attention, and I had to announce to them that Mr. Gerard wouldn't be able to come there anymore because he was without a vehicle, and there was no way that he was going to travel on that road any other way. So everybody started to leave, and I said, "Well, why don't we have a workout anyway?" So I was in front of the group, and I said, "Let's just have a workout anyway. Let's do it." And everybody left except for 15 people. Because I remember that. 15 people stayed. And that was the beginning of our group afterwards. And so this went on for a couple months, I guess. And then I got a call from Mr. Gerard, Sensei Gerard, called me up and said, hey, look, I've got a special person coming to visit in Timmins. This was for January. And I said, oh, that sounds interesting. He said, yes. He said, my sensei is going to be here for a weekend seminar, and I would like you guys to come down. I said, awesome. So we set it all up and we drove down there and we slept in the dojo and we met Sensei Shintani, and it was awesome. It was probably the most amazing thing that I've ever experienced. That was 1974, January of 74. I was a white belt still.
Wow. What was your impression of Hashi Shintani?
I honestly didn't know what to think of him the first time I saw him, because he wasn't, I don't know, maybe I had think back in those days, if you were from my age group, that's when all these Bruce Lee movies were just coming out and all these martial arts films. And it was really corny, like, Bruce, you saw them all. Go to the Roxy Theater in Warren, and we'd watch Bruce Lee jump up in the air and kick a sign off 12 feet in the air, But so I had all these visions of what a karate man was going to be. And when I got there, it was like the first time I met him, we were just talking, not in the dojo. And so get this, he was dressed in a tweed jacket, like a sports jacket, blue jeans, cowboy boots. It's freaking January in Timmins, And I like looking at this guy. Wow, this isn't what I expected. And he's really quiet, he'd talk, but you had to listen to him because he wouldn't talk loud. So you had to listen to him. Something I learned later. And he was always like that. Yeah, he was like, holy man. So I didn't know what to think of him. But then when we went in the dojo and he was introduced by Mr. Gerard, and then he started to teach and he demonstrated what he wanted. Wow. So it was like right away, I knew that this was real. He was real. It wasn't some choreography in a movie. What he was doing was the real thing. And so my first impression of him was just like, it set me back, and if I could use the word awesome is kind of not the right word for it, but he had my attention totally. So that's my first impression. So I went from this really laid back, easygoing, quiet guy to somebody who could scare the crap out of you in an instant. And that's something I'll talk about later, but that's another topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, just real.
What was your favorite memory of Hashi Shintani?
Wow. I've been struggling with that one because there's a lot of them. Do I have to pick just one?
Your
No.
floor.
It's hard to do because,
Yeah.
I have had moments or hours spent with Sensei sitting around a kitchen table till the middle of the night, talking and listening to stories about Sensei's you know, growing up and his younger days and the wartime camps and his family and their heritage, you know. And then there was a lot of that, you know, and so we would spend hours and hours sitting around the table talking and listening, just listening. You know, I think I learned more from Sensei, from his recollections and just talking to us. I think I learned as much, at least as much, by listening to him, talking to us, as I did on the floor. You know, you can learn things physically, and then after a while, it's body memory. You'll just remember, it comes to you. But those talks that we had, and you know I talk a lot. I've been told that, I get it. But Sensei would talk for hours and hours. And you know what? I never got tired of it. I wish I could remember every word, because, you know, I got to experience and see some of the things that he talked about later on in years, you know, and it connected it all. So every once in a while, I'll kind of recall something that he talked about, and then it clicks. Wow, another wow. I spent another year. We went down to. We were going to the tournament, Sensei's tournament, and he invited us, myself and a couple other friends. Claude Denolme was one, and to stay with them because we had no room or anything. So where he lived, in Hamilton. So, holy, well, of course, I'm going to go there, you know, and it was like, I can't recall the lady's name that his friend that he stayed with. Lorraine. We were there. And so anyway, but they just let us do our thing. We were just young, you know, like young guys, and early 20s or whatever. And yeah, he's just like, just relax, do what you want, hang out. Want to go somewhere, go ahead, you won't bother us. Totally laid back, so relaxed. And I felt, you know, I felt really comfortable there. So that kind of set the tone for years. And there's been other times when Sensei Bruce and came up with him to Wawa with Jack, Sensei Jack. We did a seminar in Wawa. All the Shindo pictures that you see in front of those blue benches are in the Mishpicotton High School in Wawa. Those were early years of Shindo. So he spent a weekend there. We rented out one of the log chalets at the Wawa Motor, and spent lots of time with him there, just the two of us actually, because everybody else were, you know, out and about visiting and stuff. So I stayed with Sensei, and that's when Sensei Darren Marshall first met him. He was working at the Wawa Motor, and he was like looking for any excuse to come down to the room, you know. But yeah, we spent hours talking again. It was just like, pardon me, I keep going back to that. You know, some of the greatest lessons are words. And I am so grateful that, you know, I was able to have some of that. It was because he honestly did change my life. And so, you know, I'll never forget any of that stuff. At least for now, anyway. Maybe later.
How did
I'm
Hashi Shintani
talking a lot here.
Sorry?
So I tend to ramble on, but they just, I just thoughts run one into the other, so.
No problem. How did Hashi Shintani make you feel?
Well, that changed over the years. I mean, the first time I met him, to be honest with you, I was pretty intimidated by him, especially after I saw what he could do on the floor as a karate man. But as a person, he was the kind of guy I felt very comfortable with. He's my kind of person, very, very normal, average guy. Like, he's very laid back, my kind of person. He was not pretentious at all. If you didn't know that he was a karate man, like just talking with him, you would never know. He had no airs about him of, whatever, his status or any of that. And very, very open to talk to. Like, you could talk to him and ask him anything. And he'd tell you straight out what he thought. It was really refreshing to be able to meet somebody that you could connect with like that, So that was a long way of saying it made me very comfortable.
What struck you most about Hashi Shintani? The one thing that stands out.
Well, one thing, there was more than one thing. The first thing would be looking into his eyes, which I had a hard time doing in those days. To be honest with you, I would look in his eyes and, I couldn't help feeling a little bit intimidated because of what I knew of him, but there was an intensity about him. Like, his focus was laser sharp, and it showed in other ways. And we've talked about this before. Sensei Bruce and I have talked about this. He could look at people. He could look at a person. Sensei Bruce told me this himself. He could look at a person in an arena or in a tournament. There'd be a person standing on the other side of the room, or in a grading or whatever, a class. But he'd look at a person over there and he'd know. Never seen the person before, but he'd know what kind of person they were just by looking at them. You remember that, Sensei Bruce?
I absolutely do, 100%.
Yeah. That is it. He could look at you and he would know you right off. He would know you right away. So there was no fooling him. Don't even think about trying to pull a yarn or, stretch a truth, or you better be straight up with him or he will let you know. And I've seen it. So he was straight up.
What inspired you most about Hashi Shintani?
Well, I think that was one of the things, I mean, I heard all the stories that he told me, and his talking about his family and his younger life in the war camps, which was a big thing. And believe me, I went there and I looked at that place. It was not the same, but I saw the things that he was living in, and I saw the lifestyle they lived. And yet, even with all that, and believe me, being segregated and basically imprisoned is not a little thing to overcome. And yet, he was probably the most open and likable and friendliest people that I've ever met. He could, even with his history, move on. And I mean, let's face it, his whole life was dealing with people and giving to people and receiving as well. So, you know, he had a real strength to him. And, you know, he told us stories about those days in the camp. And that's where he started his karate training. And it was a lot different than what we have done. But that strength in him, and that, you know, he still, even with all the things that they went through as a family, he was still able to be positive and welcoming, but never, never being pushed back. He had focus and he knew what he wanted to do and he did it. So I really admired him for that.
Was there a moment or that made you say, wow, or an aha moment with Sensei Shintani, whether personal or on the floor?
Yes. More than once, but you know, I mentioned earlier about seeing two sides of the man, you know, and he talked about this quite often, that a karate man is a gentleman outside of the ring, but inside the ring, he's like a vicious animal. And I saw that in him. He could scare the bejesus out of you. Just in an instant, just by dropping his ki. And I'm sure you've seen it many times, you guys, where he would just be standing there and all of a sudden the whole room would shake and he'd just like, boom, he'd drop his ki into the floor and the whole room would just resonate with that boom. And then you knew you were in trouble. And by that time, it was too late because he was right in your face. So the first aha moment, wow, time for me was the very first time he used me to demonstrate a fighting technique. And it was the most amazing moment of my life, like in my karate life, because I have tried to do what he did my whole life, and I have never been able to do that. He jumped up, so he set me up in front of him, and we were in a seminar in Kapuskasing. It wasn't the first time that he used me for a demonstration, but at this time, I'm going to give you this memory. He set me up. He says, okay, get ready, Rick. I said, okay, Sensei. So I was ready. I'm in my fighting stance. He said, I want you to block me as fast and hard as you can. And, you know, he dropped his ki like that and it just wham. And he said, no, you're not doing it. He said, you don't think that you think that you have to take it easy on me? No. He said, you better go hard. So I was like, well, I can't, you know, I'm thinking, right? And then he did it again. He said, no. He says, I'm coming in on you hard now. He says, you better be ready. You better go as hard and fast as you can. So I did. And so he jumped up, he ki-eyed, and he jumped up in the air, and he came down, and he punched me 3 times coming down. Like, so he jumped up, and he's like 1, 2, 3. As he's coming down and landed, his last punch was when he landed in a Taisabaki movement. This whole thing was Taisabaki. In front of me and landed, and I did the best I could, and I could not block one of his punches, not once. He was all around me, and it was like, I couldn't believe it. And I really did try because I was embarrassed. by what he said, So I said, well, how can I presume not to, like, he's gonna, he's the master. And it was the most amazing thing that I've ever seen. And I tried. I've been able to do 2 punches. I was pretty proud of that. But what he did, I could never do it. To this day, I've never been able to match that. And that stuck in my mind my whole life. And I thought, wow, that was a wow.
Is there a favorite technique that Hashi Shintani showed you, something that you still teach today?
There is, and it's partly to do to that memory that I just talked about. I like to. So it's a classic of him attacking. Now, he never punched once. There was no such. You didn't just go and punch, give one punch, right? When you attack somebody, you just kept fighting. So again, using me as a demonstration. In this demonstration, he got me to set up, okay, fighting stance. Okay, I want you to throw two punches at me. Just come right through me. Come right through me. And by that time I knew that I don't fool around. Do exactly what he asked. So I did. And it's one of his classic moves that is taught today. We call them Shintani techniques, but to me, that's what I practice. That's all I've ever practiced. I teach what he taught me. So I attacked with those 2 punches, right? I'm going in there full on, going right through. Pardon me. And he blocked me, and he actually picked my arms up and threw me. Like, he didn't grab me, he just blocked me and boom. And because I was going so hard and I was going right through him, he picked up momentum and he just threw me right past him. And I thought, wow, another wow. And then he says, okay, that was good. He says, good. So do it again. So I did. And this time he punched back. And holy man, you couldn't even see it coming. But he literally picked me up and then he punched me while I was going off my feet, because he pulled me right off balance. So I'm off of my feet, So I'm literally floating through the air, and he blocks me like that and he punches me on the way by. And then it went from there, it went on, and he added things. And, that's one of my, some people think that that's all I teach. And, I do other things, but I keep going back to that because I don't want to let it go. I want to keep that because that's one of my memories of him. And it's not a conscious memory where I'm thinking about, what he said or anything. It was a body memory. I felt what kind of power he had. And what I experienced there was, you can't put into words. You have to feel it. So I keep that and I teach that almost every time I go somewhere where I'm asked to teach. I always go back to that because I think it's really important if you want to experience what Sensei taught and what he was about. That's part of it.
What is the one thing about Hashi Shintani that you think he should be remembered for?
I think Sensei Shintani should be remembered as being an honorable man. I think that that's very, very important for, especially, things change, life changes, people change, our cultures change. And, you know, that's something we don't want to lose, is that sense of honor. And his whole life, my whole life spent with Sensei, was listening to him talk about that. But not just talking about it, he lived it. He did what he said. He wasn't just talk. And, you know, in fact, most of the time when he was teaching, he didn't explain anything to you. He would demonstrate it, and it was up to you to learn how to do it. It was a lot different than we see today in a lot of cases, where lessons are being broken down into, you know, minute details about how to do everything. He didn't do that. He would just do it in front of you. And if you watched, I used to watch how he put his toes on the floor. I was like, I wanted to see everything he did, because that's how you had to learn. But having said that, he was a man of honor. He always talked about his Sensei Otsuka and honoring him. And I'm gonna give you an example of maybe I should say this for another topic, but yeah, maybe I will. I think that sense of honor, and I think that's going back to he lived martial arts the way that it was intended to live. That samurai Bushido code, that was him, and he was all about honor.
What would you like to say to the students that never had the opportunity to meet Hashi Shintani?
Well, I think there are opportunities to listen to him. There are videos that are floating around that are available to listen to what he has to say. I think that would be a good start. You know, just the way he talked was very calming. You know, he would demand that of you. You know, he wouldn't talk loud, even if there was a whole room full of students in a class. He'd talk in a low voice, so everybody would just be quiet and listen. But I think if you have the opportunity to watch some of the videos that are available with Sensei talking and just listen to him, would be a good start. And then from there, then I would encourage the younger students, especially that have never met Sensei and don't really know what he was all about, to seek out and listen and learn from some of the senior karateka in the Shintani Federation. So there's some really amazing people that that are available. And, you know, it's today we're talking about, you know, all the restrictions that we've been going through. It's been difficult, you know, with the whole pandemic thing that's been going on. That's been kind of difficult. And there's almost a generation of karateka that, you know, haven't really had that opportunity. So I think if that's something that you can get access to, if you have the opportunities to go and learn from some of the senior karateka, some of the senior students of Sensei Shintani, that would be the next thing that I would recommend, because every person that Sensei taught was given something different to suit them. And everybody's different. All the senior people, they're similar. You know, we practice the same type of things. We talk about the same kind of things, but we're all individual and we're different. So that opportunity to work with as many seniors as you can when you have the opportunity would be what I would encourage, you know.
Can you describe Hashi Shintani in one sentence?
He was a good man.
That sums it up wonderfully.
Is there anything else you would like to say about Hashi Shintani?
Well, talked a lot about his history. I think that and his character and those wow moments that I've experienced with him and one of the things that I think that something that all the students should be consider when you're practicing karate. Karate is not just about kicking and punching. Karate is about being a good person. And, you know, I've graded a lot of people over the years, you know, with all the students that I've had and where they've gone. You know, it's spread from Wawa to southeastern Ontario to southwestern Ontario to all of northern Ontario, northwestern Ontario, right to all of northern Alberta. That all these came from that original group, and so I helped Sensei to promote a lot of black belts over the years, and met a lot of people all over the country. You know, it's one of the common things though that he would always ask me, because this is before the Osaki board, when Sensei would grade a person for you. I would take a student or a group of students to him and I'd say, Sensei, these people are ready for grading. And the first thing he would ask me about them was, are they good people? Didn't even look at them yet. Are they a good person? Yes, sir. So kicking and punching is definitely what we do, but being a good person is more important.
Well, Sensei Rick, we're getting to the point where we're going to wrap it up. And if you have any closing comments on anything you want to backtrack on, anything that you want to share, now's the time.
Well, there was only one thing that I didn't really talk about, but I kind of touched on it. I'm very proud of where I've come from, and the people that supported me my whole life in karate, starting from Wawa and then spreading. That Sensei Danny moved out west to northern BC. Merritt, Bruce, was it Merritt?
There, yep.
Merritt, where he started, and you went there. And then northern Alberta. There was Sensei Bruce. You moved to southwestern Ontario and Simcoe, and you started people there, with Sensei Jim, one of your students, right? And we had the three amigos. Do I have to say their names?
Sure.
Okay. So there was Sensei Sanford, and Sensei Darren, and Sensei Dave, moving to Lindsay and then starting karate in that area. And how it grew. Myself, I started many classes, many dojos in the Wawa area. I had started up on my own, 4 different groups. And then it just spread from there. My own students moving and starting up things in other areas. We established the very first, like the Northwest Ontario Wado Kai was formed in 1991. And I decided that we were going to do a pilot project of implementing the Shintani Federation Constitution before it was all done, before it came into effect. So we started with that. and it's still going today. So a lot of things that I'm very proud of, and I want to thank all the people that supported me over the years. And Sensei Bruce was one, came from Wawa before he moved to Southern Ontario. And so, you know, if you want to look at what you accomplished, it's what people have helped you accomplish. That's really the way it should be said, I think. So that would be something that I would leave with everybody, is that sharing and being a good person, it all goes together. And the rest of it just, it'll fall into place. You train hard, you'll be good.
That's great. Good message. Good message. Well, Sensei Bruce, do you have any comments?
This is absolutely incredible. This is the third interview we've done. And as you're talking, and same with the previous two interviews, I get drawn back into nostalgic moments. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But the theme of these interviews so far has been consistent about honoring Sensei and his character and what he represented to the ranking people in this organization. And I hope that that message comes through to the people that haven't known him. But I know it. For me, I can see it. I can see it. I can feel it in the comments being made. So great job. Great interview, Sensei Rick.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The passion
No.
that people show when they talk about Sensei Shintani is truly amazing. But he did so much for so many people. So it's wonderful to hear it and reminiscing. I know I'm on the young scale of those who had a lot of contact with Sensei Shintani, and it's just so nice hearing, you know, and reinforcing all of these stories.
Yeah, he was a pretty nice guy.
Certainly was.
You know, the funny thing is, I never called him Sensei for years and years. Whenever I'd greet him, I'd call him, unless it was in the dojo, right? But if it was outside the dojo, I always greet him as Mr. Shintani. It's good to see you again.
You get shit for that? I did. Oh yeah. I'd introduce him as Mr. Shintani. He'd look at me and just, Bruce.
Oh no, not in the dojo, never.
Yeah.
But outside, like if we were outside of the dojo, you know, I'd always, but he never said anything. He was, but that was him, you know, because I was a bush guy. What do I know?
Yeah.
One time he says to me, you know, so I had a problem. Everybody was starting to do everything in Japanese terms, right? And I was still talking English, you know, front kick, whatever. I was down in Hamilton area, going to see him. So we're in a class, and I said, Sensei, I'm sorry, but you know, I don't know most of these terms. Yeah, but you can do them. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Isn't that true? Isn't that?
Yeah. Don't get hung up on details.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Thank
Well,
you, guys.
go ahead. Sorry.
Said thanks a lot. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll just sign off right now. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you and enjoy. We'll be talking to you, Sensei Rick.